What's up, everybody? Bootsy Greenwood here, and I am talking about the great book, Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zealand. I created a summary to try to take all the concepts and filter them down into the most important and useful so that you can go ahead and start using this model and these particular principles and techniques that are outlined in the book in great detail very, very quickly and soon. A little interpretation of it. I highly recommend reading the whole entire book. It's amazing. There's a lot of cool nuanced points, and I have a new series, which I'm doing here, kind of talking about some of the more, I would say, deeper and more advanced kind of ideas in the book. I'm still going to be making it consumable and practical, but to me, what matters is that you can put this stuff into practice as quickly as possible. But when you can start to see the nuance, it really starts to tie the room together, right? Like you start to see a lot of detail in the landscape, in the script, in the decorations that is around you, right? You start to notice these principles. And then the more you do that, it's like an upward spiral, right? It's like the wave of fortune, let's say. So one of the biggest and most misunderstood ideas and principles in spirituality as a whole is the idea of judgment. You better not judge, lest ye yourself be judged. What the hell does that mean? Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to throw I'm going to throw something down on you, and then that means that you're going to have a good comeback. I don't know what that means. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're just like battle rapping, right, in the ether here. What it's talking about is not really on the surface what we call judgment, though, okay? Judgment is not calling a spade a spade. That's totally fine. You can say that's a rich guy, or that person is not that smart, or, on paper, right? Like as long as you're not, it's not even about insulting. You could actually insult someone, and I don't think that would necessarily be a judgment because by definition of reality transurfing, what judgment is comparison, okay? It's comparison. Comparison is the thief of way more than joy, though. And the reason why is because it creates a dependent relationship, okay? Now, in the book Reality Transurfing, Vadim really only has one thing that he calls a law. He doesn't really say that the laws can be spelled out all that well or anything. He's like, hey man, there's balance. That's it. Balance is the reason why a table has 4 legs and stands up and it's square and level, and the walls the way they are, and the fact that we're in containers, right? Even though everything's in constant motion and constant flux, it still is constantly seeking equilibrium. It wants balance. And one of the biggest things that he talks about in Reality Transurfing is this idea right here of comparison and dependency. Basically, it's the same thing. So instead of it being like, oh, well, that person's promiscuous, or that guy's bald. Okay, that's fine. That's a true statement, right? If someone said that, they're not judging me, right? They could even throw out like a hilarious, a roast on me about my head. In fact, the first time I ever understood Spanish, I was in Peru studying Spanish, and I was walking down the street and I heard someone go, "Mira, su cabeza es un huevo." And I was like, wait a second, I understood that. Oh my gosh, they were talking about me. Oh, it was like a realization of like, I was getting roasted from across the street. The guy said, hey, that dude's head looks like an egg. And then it clicked. But like, that's when I started to hear and understand Spanish. I was just getting destroyed by some onlooker across the street. Anyway, that wasn't a judgment. It was just a hilarious, zinger. What are you going to do? I just had to step back and laugh at that point, because, me and his girlfriend were walking down the street. Okay, no. All right, so judgment, back to it. Judgment. Really, if the guy would have said, I am a pretty person, I look good because I have hair, and this guy doesn't have any hair, so he's uglier than me, and that makes him less than I am. That, guys, is judgment. That is a judgment. So even if it's implied, like, oh yeah, well, they work for Macy's, or, they drive a Tesla, or like whatever. You think you're better, right? If you think you're better than a rich man because you're a poor, or if you think you're better than a poor person because you are rich, well, that is a codependent relationship. And what happens? You disrupt the balance, okay? Anytime we put something on a pedestal, you hear people like in the dating world talk about that. Don't put the other person on a pedestal. And what usually happens is people falter to the other extreme and they put the person down. Well, this is just some dumb broad, blah, blah, rah, rah, or whatever, right? Well, that's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Here's the thing. Everyone has the right to be exactly as they are, and you have the right to be exactly as you are. And that's the rule. That's the rule of balance. As soon as you're like, well, and you scoff at someone because they're down here, or you say that, oh, I wish I could someday be like this amazing guru, then you put them on a pedestal, right? Like either way, you're comparing yourself and you're disrupting the balance. And that's what we really want to understand when it comes to judgment. Judge not lest ye be judged. Generally speaking, the person who's saying that is the judgiest person who's ever had the opportunity to judge. They can't wait to judge somebody because they're judging themselves as non-judgmental, ironically, right? And putting themselves on a pedestal and putting the other person below themselves, right? So what does this do? It creates a disturbance in the balance, and it creates what the author calls excess potential. Excess potential emotion. This is karma. So what happens at that point, right, is that judgment will be leveled against you. Judge not lest ye be judged. Not by the other person, right, but by the excess potential that has been generated outside of balance, okay? And it's so easy to get into this either way, right? Putting yourself below or above. So if somebody's telling you, well, don't put that person on a pedestal, yeah, true, but don't put them down below you either, right? Like they're just another person, just like you. Everyone is. And no one's really any more special or less special than anybody else, right? Everyone in this world is here with a specific goal that they want to attain. And that's why they're here. And they may not know that yet, and that's okay too, right? Like they're just going through life. Maybe they haven't come to that realization that you have about why the frogs are turning gay or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So don't judge them. Just let them be where they're at. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Give yourself the gift of paying attention to who you are. And when you can start to love people unconditionally, right, which is way harder than it sounds, then at that point, you are way, way, way going with the flow and in that balance, right? You're in that balance. You're allowing things to be what they are. Now, it doesn't mean that you ignore, things that are unjust or things that should not stand. In fact, you can easily take a stand and say, hey, look, that's not a virtuous thing to do. That's not a proper thing to do. That's not how we handle ourselves, okay? As long as you're not creating dependency by judging and being like, well, you're not as good as us because we do this and they do that. They're savages and we're smart people and we're better than them. As soon as you get into that, you create this whole entire world of turmoil and turbulence, and it will come back. It's just karma, man. It's just like it's a boomerang. We put it out there. So I hope that helps a little bit with the idea of judgment in spirituality and really what that means. Again, it's fine to call a spade a spade. That person is, that type of person. They do these things on the weekends, fill in the blank. It doesn't matter. But if you're like, well, I'm a musician and you're a comedian and musicians are better than comedians or whatever, then first of all, you're just insecure and you're trying to find a way to make yourself feel better, which if you would just accept yourself, you'd save us all a lot of trouble and we could just go on about our business, okay? Love your heart with all your mind and allow everyone to be exactly as they are and allow yourself to be exactly as you are. Don't judge yourself either against someone else, and allow yourself to be who you are. In your heart, you are a specific, unique water droplet of the creation of the all, right? It's that mind that's full of plaque that needs to be cleaned out, that needs to be flossed by doing these comparison jumping type of things, just trying to get that little bit of validation, just trying to bump that ego up a little bit. So I hope that video is helpful. Like I said about judgment, we want to make sure that we're, independent. We have everything that we need within ourselves, and we're not looking to external sources and comparing ourselves against other people in order to feel better, because it doesn't really last. And also, it's probably coming back in a form of at least a flick in the nose, if not you know, a clip in the ear. All right, peace out. See you on the next one, guys.